What is going on, everybody? This video is going to be discussing my thoughts on Uncharted 4, and I'm also going to be talking about some of the issues that I had with Angry Joe's Uncharted 4 review. Now, before I go any further, I'm going to throw this disclaimer out there. I am not a Sony fanboy that is going to attack Joe just because Joe did not give Uncharted 4 a perfect score. Nor am I an Xbox fanboy that is going to attack Joe just because he gave Uncharted 4 a high score. And it's not even really an attack on Joe at all. It's just discussing some of the things that he said in his review and why I take issue with them. So, we'll get to that in a little bit. I wanted to make an Uncharted 4 review myself. I wanted to get in front of this microphone and review one of my most anticipated games of this generation, actually of all time, because the Uncharted series is one of my favorite game series of all time. So I've been looking forward to this for 5 years. It was after Uncharted 3. It's been 5 years. It's been a while. And I always would love to review games that I just love so much, and that's what this game is to me. I love it so much that I can't do the game justice by reviewing it. Mostly because I will sound like a broken record. I'm just gonna praise pretty much 99% of the game over and over again. And it really wouldn't be appealing to a lot of people, at least I feel. And the more I sat down and thought about it, this game is near flawless to me. The only criticism that I would have of this game is the final boss fight. I'm not going to spoil anything because I really wish you all would go out and experience this game for yourselves if you haven't already. But they could have done the final boss fight much, much differently. It just was incredibly disappointing. Especially since this is the last Uncharted game, this was just not the best way to send off the series with final boss fights. They just did not do a great job here, in my opinion. But other than that, I literally have nothing bad to say about the game at all. So, those are my quick thoughts on Uncharted 4. And Uncharted 4 is actually one of the reasons why I haven't been making as many commentary videos lately, because I've just been so engrossed into that game. So, alright. Now we're going to go get into my issues that I had with Angry Joe's Uncharted 4 review. Now, I wrote down here the things that he said that I want to discuss, because I don't want to take anything he said out of context, and I don't want to misquote him, because that's not what I do. So, there we go. He was playing Chapter 4, which is titled A Normal Life, and he made the statement that he bought Uncharted 4 to go out on adventures. He didn't want to play a normal life. Now, I fully understand that he might have just been joking at that moment. I fully understand that. Maybe I'm being off base when discussing this, but Uncharted 4 was created for fans of the Uncharted series. It was not created for people to now just jump into the series without playing the previous games. And that's actually a recurring issue with Joe's review, is that since he has not played the previous Uncharted games, he's kind of off base in a lot of the things that he said. Chapter 4, Normal Life, if you've played the previous Uncharted games, and if you've been with Nathan Drake since the beginning, this chapter just hits you on so many levels. It brings back so many memories when he's looking at all his past treasures from the previous games, and it's like you're just going back through memory after memory after memory. And not only that, it's just kind of shocking to see Drake just having a normal life. You've never seen that before. And it was great. It was a whole different side of Nathan Drake and Elena that we've never seen before. And that's what that chapter was created for. I can understand new players thinking that that chapter could be boring, because you would rather go out on adventures and do stuff like that, but that's just not what it was created for. And you know, maybe Joe was joking. Maybe he was, so I don't know, it struck me the wrong way, so. Alright, he also made the statement that the story of Uncharted 4 really doesn't tug on your heartstrings, or really make you emotional at all. Or really make you emotional. Sorry about that. Unlike Naughty Dog's other game, The Last of Us. Now, here's the issue that, once again, since Joe has never played the previous Uncharted games at all, a lot of the key scenes in Uncharted 4 won't emotionally hit him at all. But if you've played the previous Uncharted games, a lot of these cutscenes will hit you pretty hard, especially a lot of the plot twists later on. There are some things that you will find out that will shock the hell out of you. And I'm not joking. I got literally shocked at some of the plot turns of this game. But see, it won't have an effect on you if you've never played the previous games. It just won't. And he mentions The Last of Us. Well, here's the problem with that. There's only one The Last of Us. There are no other The Last of Us games. This is the 4th Uncharted game. And once again, this game was created for fans of Uncharted. The Last of Us is a new IP. All of us have played the first game now. It's a newer game. Uncharted really isn't a newer game. So, okay. I mean, I just wish that he would have played the previous games. And honestly, at this point, there really is no excuse for anyone to not have played the previous games. Uncharted 1 almost came out 10 years ago. There really is no excuse to not have played the previous games. Alright. He then mentioned later on that they really should have taken some stuff from the newer Tomb Raider games, like crafting and customization. Well, first off, there is customization. If you go into the bonus section, you can actually use different character skins in the campaign. So there is some customization. But honestly, does customization really add anything to the game? It doesn't. It doesn't really do anything to the game. Did customization make the newer Tomb Raider games any better? No, they really didn't. If it didn't have customization, I don't think it would have impacted the Tomb Raider games at all. And then he mentioned crafting. Why in the hell would they add new mechanics in the final game of a series? Why would they do that? It makes absolutely no sense. Especially game mechanics that really have nothing to do with the Uncharted series at all. Why would they just randomly add in crafting? Doesn't make a lot of sense. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Well, Dan, they added in the rope mechanics that were actually lifted from Tomb Raider. Okay, that's fine. But the rope mechanics fit within the Uncharted universe. And actually, there were some rope mechanics in the previous games. It just, you couldn't do it at many different points in the game, but there were still some rope mechanics in the previous Uncharted games. So, like, why would they do that? It doesn't make sense. This is the final game of the series. Adding in pointless new mechanics makes no sense whatsoever. And honestly, once again, did crafting really make the newer Tomb Raider games better? No. I thought the newer Tomb Raider games were really good because it looked great, it played great. Lara Croft the reboot of Lara Croft is so much better than the older versions, and the stories are pretty good. That's why I like the new Tomb Raider games, not because I could craft and customize. But that's just me. That's just me. Okay, and then he mentioned that the treasure collectibles are pretty useless. No, they're not. They really aren't. Number one, they're not useless for people who collect trophies, like me. I'm a trophy hunter. But trophy hunting aside, For every treasure you pick up, you get an unlock point. And you spend those points to unlock bonus content. Now, that's not the greatest thing in the world, I have to admit, but that's not useless. Useless means useless. It provides nothing. And once again, the treasure collecting has been in every single Uncharted game. Why change that up for the last game of the series? I know earlier I stated that I would sound like a broken record, and I'm guessing I'm starting to do that right now, but I mean, just seriously. I can't believe he didn't think about this when making the review. And then he mentioned that it really should have had 2-player co-op. If you played the Uncharted games, it can't have 2-player co-op. Now, you could have co-op missions. Okay, that's fine, and the previous games have done that. And actually, Uncharted 4 is going to have future DLC for co-op missions. But when it comes to the story, it can't have co-op. Because there's a lot of instances, not just in this game, but in the previous Uncharted games, where Nathan Drake is by himself. How would that work for a co-op game? Well, the second player would do nothing? It wouldn't work. It's not like other games, like other co-op games like Gears of War, where you're almost always with somebody. Co-op works in that series because you're almost always at every single point in the game with another person. At least one other person. It doesn't work with Uncharted. It just doesn't. And you don't even have to play the previous Uncharted games to just not see that. You can just play this game and see there are a lot of times when Drake is by himself. And co-op wouldn't work. Okay, then he goes on to say that multiplayer is completely unnecessary and they insultingly added in microtransactions. Now, I find it funny how I actually agree with him that multiplayer is actually unnecessary. If the multiplayer didn't exist in Uncharted 4, it really wouldn't have much of an impact on the game. And I've said that about Uncharted multiplayer since the first time it was ever introduced. And the funny thing is, I remember I got attacked for that when I made that video. But nobody's really attacked Joe for when he said this. I find that kind of funny. I just do. Because I remember being attacked, being criticized for saying that. But it really isn't. And honestly, the multiplayer itself, I think it's fun. I do. It's fun little time waster. But it's not one of the greatest multiplayer games out there. It doesn't have a progression system, which is my main complaint about the multiplayer. And there's only 4 game modes. That's it. There's only... Actually, never mind. I take that back. There's only 3 game modes. Not a lot of variety. And with no progression system, there's not really much to fight for. There's really no, like, goal to achieve. Like, I want to get the highest rank. So, yeah, it kind of is unnecessary. And then, of course, Joe's going on his normal microtransactions rant. And I'm not going to get into a deep microtransactions discussion because that's a whole separate video I can make. But the microtransactions in Uncharted 4, to me, are not a big deal. They're just for the skins and the costumes. It's just stuff that really doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Ironically, the bad way to do microtransactions is from The Last of Us Remastered, which is from Naughty Dog, where they made overpowered weapons as microtransactions. And I think they were like $2 a weapon. I could be wrong. And they were overpowered. And I remember getting killed by those weapons. So that was basically like, okay, the people who paid extra money has the advantage. And that is the worst way to do microtransactions. But that doesn't apply here for Uncharted 4. So I don't see what the big deal is. And finally, he mentions at the end of the review, that the Nathan Drake collection is now a must-play. See, that's what I don't understand. Why did you have to play Uncharted 4 to now see that the Nathan Drake collection was a must-play? One of the reasons the Nathan Drake collection was even created to begin with was to give a lot of people the chance to play the previous Uncharted games before Uncharted 4 launched. That was one of the reasons they created it. The other reason was to make money. I'm not saying they didn't, but that's one of the reasons it was created. And there was literally no excuse for, not just Joe, for anybody to not have played the previous Uncharted games. Because like I've already stated, Uncharted 4 is the final game in the series and was created as a send-off for the fans of Uncharted. It's a fan service game. And if you've never played the previous games, there's a lot of stuff that not only you won't understand, but it won't have the same effect on you that it will have for actual fans of Uncharted. And unfortunately, in my opinion, if you've never played the previous entries of Uncharted, there's literally no way you can do a proper review for this game. And even though I don't hate Joe's review, it was still a solid review. He couldn't have reviewed the game properly because he never played the previous games. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. So, alright, that's about it. Please let me know what you thought about this video and what you thought about Uncharted 4 if you've beaten it already. So, alright, let me know what you think. Until next time, have a good one.